Hello, I'm Nate Dowg. This is number 0885, the Stuff File Program, with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File Program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there! Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File Program, number 0885. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File Program, you'll meet Don Schechter, who is the author of the science fiction novel called Ascendance. What's Ascendance all about?
So as I start developing, well, what would a story be? What would the world be that would have this two characters, a husband and a wife? The wife is terminally ill. She's dying. She wants to let go. And her husband, who's like doting on her, says, no, just wait just 1 week longer till your, I think it was 30th or 40th birthday back then. And then we can ascend together. I'm like, what does ascend mean? What does this mean? What is the world like if someone really believed that they had to hold on to a certain length of time and then could go to the afterlife or something together? What does this mean?
Bobby Borgia is a magician and illusionist who has just won an Emmy. And initially, he didn't even know that he was in the running.
My phone kept ringing with this weird number. And I'm like, it looks like spam. Well, the number just kept popping up. I'm like, hello? And the voice goes, are you Robert Gary Borgia Jr.? And I'm like, yeah. You figure like I owe money to somebody here. I don't know. And he goes, this is the Emmy Award Council, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, yeah? And they're like, congratulations on your telly. You're now up for an Emmy. I didn't even know I won a telly. And I didn't even know what a telly is. And I was like, oh my God. And I got to, rent the tux, take my fiance. It was mind-blowing, and I won. I couldn't believe I won.
Stuart Nulman is in with another edition of Book Banter.
Hi, I'm Stuart Nulman. Book Banter welcomes humorist David Sedaris and his new collection of essays called The Land and Its People. It will be an interesting journey into Dave's world, and it's coming up soon on the Stuff File Program.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news, dad joke theater, Sir Dudley's Poetry Corner, a morning shower thought, and of course, an idiot of the day. The guests later, the person who told you that this was show number 0885 was Nate Dowg, Facilities Coordinator for Access Humboldt, which includes a station that the Stuff File Program is heard on weekly. It's Eureka, California's KZZH 96.7 FM.
Kazaa!
Thank you, Nate, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File Program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. Workers in St. Mary's, Newfoundland have started removing approximately 250,000 gallons of rotting fish sauce abandoned in 110 tanks when the Atlantic Seafood Sauce Company shut down in the early 2000s.
What is that smell? It smells like a used diaper filled with Indian food.
After years of pushing the province to fund the cleanup, the government committed $2 million last year.
What is that? It smells like a turd covered in burnt hair.
Workers are slicing open tanks and mixing the fermented sauce with peat moss before hauling it to a specialized landfill in Sunnyside, roughly 2 hours away.
This is worse than the time the raccoon got in the copier.
In Sunnyside, the waste will be sealed like a Ziploc bag.
Put your trust in a Ziploc bag.
Mayor Steve Ryan teared up several times as the first truckload departed, saying he could finally feel hope. Well, did he tear up because it was finally leaving town? Or was it because, it was 20-year-old rotting fish sauce? Anyway, the cleanup wraps up by October, though officials warn the smell will get considerably worse before improving. I guess for the extreme few who don't bathe regularly, they no longer have an excuse.
Hey, what's that smell?
Now that they will no longer have the rotting fish sauce to blame.
It's you!
A 25-year-old Utah woman is behind bars after allegedly setting fire to a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints meeting house while helping set up her own wedding for the following day. Lanita Tessa Moreno faces aggravated arson, a first-degree felony, along with misdemeanor theft and providing false information to police. Surveillance footage from an Ace Hardware store allegedly shows Moreno stealing 2 or 3 lighters before the July 10th blaze, which broke out in the church's Relief Society room with 6 people inside. Damage is estimated at over $108,000. Investigators also discovered Moreno had lied about obtaining a marriage license. Moreno was arrested and booked into the Davis County Jail, where she is being held without bail. I did a deeper dive into this story, but try as I may, I couldn't find anything that said the wedding is off. Yeah. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, you can get just about anything and everything on eBay, including harassment.
When you can't seem to find a baseball that's been signed, that's on eBay.
eBay has agreed to pay nearly $50 million to David and Ina Steiner, a Massachusetts couple harassed by former company employees in 2019.
A new toy you can wind, a men's suit that's silk lined, that's on eBay.
The Steiners, founders of e-commerce newsletter E-Commerce Bites, received anonymous deliveries of live cockroaches, spiders, a funeral wreath, and a bloody pig Halloween mask, along with death threats and surveillance. The workers were reportedly unhappy with coverage of eBay in the newsletter.
Bones that ring, organize a thing, jazz or swing, nice bling bling, that's on eBay.
Under the settlement, the couple receives $48.7 million in compensation, with an additional $7 million in charitable donations. Former CEO Devin Wenig contributed $2 million personally. 7 former eBay employees previously pleaded guilty to conspiracy and cyberstalking charges. eBay called the conduct wrong, reprehensible, and should never have happened. Ina Steiner says she hopes some goodwill will come out of this painful, life-changing experience. I'm wondering now if those disgruntled former employees actually bought the live cockroaches, spiders, a funeral wreath, and a bloody pig Halloween mask on eBay. I mean, they do offer everything.
Buy today and it's on its way. Other users say you will feel okay. That's on eBay.
And let's get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Don Schechter is a filmmaker. He also teaches filmmaking as a professor at Tufts University. He's the founder and CEO of Charles River Media. He hosts a podcast called No Win Scenario, and if that's not enough, he's also written his debut novel. It's a science fiction tome called Ascendance. Don joins us from Boston via Riverside.com. Hi, Don.
Hello, how you doing?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks very much for taking the time to be on the program with us. You just wrote, as I said, your novel. Why now? And was this something that was long in the making?
Yeah, why now? Well, yeah, very long in the making. Ascendance started many, many years ago. We're talking between 15 and 18 years ago. I had this image of a scene in my head while I was working on another project. That scene stuck with me for a really long time, and I couldn't figure out what was in that scene that was making me think about it constantly. So as I started developing, what would a story be? What would the world be that would have this 2 characters, a husband and a wife? The wife is terminally ill. She's dying. She wants to let go, and her husband, who's like doting on her, says, no, just wait just 1 week longer till your, I think it was 30th or 40th birthday back then, and then we can ascend together. I'm like, what does ascend mean? What does this mean? What is the world like if someone really believed that they had to hold on to a certain length of time and then could go to the afterlife or something together? What does this mean? Well, I spent years developing a world. I turned it into a feature film script because I'm a film guy and that's what I thought I'd do. And I thought I'd go make this film. But when I was done with the script, I looked at it. I'm like, I'm about $100 million short on making this movie. What do I do? So I'm going to make a long story short. Over the next probably 5 years, I ended up creating a series of short films that were eventually packaged together called the Ascendance Anthology. That wasn't the original idea that I had, but were short films, short stories that took place in the world of this Ascendance story that I had created. I did one, it was fun, it did well, I did another, and it just kind of became this like obsession to keep doing these short films. But after that Ascendance Anthology was made, I still hadn't told my primary story. And so around this time, I had been talking with few producers and some studios, and they always kept saying, this would be a lot easier to sell if you had a book. And I never wanted to be a writer, but nobody was going to write this book for me. Then COVID hit, and I knew that that was the time to start actually telling my story, and the novel was the best way to tell this story. So I spent the last, 5 years writing, rewriting, editing the book, and it just came out this past March, and now I'm here to talk about it. So it's been a long time coming, but I think it's a great time for it because we're in a very interesting time where technology is so, not just present, but is changing so rapidly that it's causing a lot of societal anxiety, which I think is covered in my book.
It's amazing. It's a horrid situation that we went through COVID, but I have talked to so many guests whose creative juices have been attuned and they gave time to doing some other project when COVID took place.
Yeah, I mean, it gave a lot of people freedom to sit at home and think. I was with my bubble at work in my media company. We had kind of gone through it relatively early or even before the lockdowns. But, it sort of said, okay, what are your priorities? What are the stories that you want to tell when you can tell them? So yeah, it was a very interesting time, for it. And it really forced me to say, okay, you've got all this time. You're away from, a lot of people. What is important to you to tell? And it was really important for me to tell this story.
When did the idea of ascendance come to you in the first place?
Yeah. So, I don't know when the word ascendance came to me. I think when I was thinking about that scene that hit me, I was working on, I was in my 20s. So this is maybe 20 years ago. I was working on like a 48-hour film festival with some friends where you just have to make a movie in a weekend. And I was preparing to do it. I know what we're going to do. And I just started thinking about ideas. I ultimately think that the story, the backbone of the story came from a couple things. Number one, in a post 9/11 world, and I was realizing I was trying to tell a story that was against extreme ideologies. And in looking back, it's like, okay, how do you tell a story where people can think about whether their own upbringing, their own ideology, their own faith, their own belief, is it too extreme? And how do you get people to sort of consider that without being in conflict with them? And that's why sci-fi is so great, because it allows people to hear stories and think about a perspective that they might not be open to if it was just told in like the present day narrative. So that's number one. And number two, the origin of Ascendance happened at a time when I was kind of getting sick of a certain style of science fiction storytelling that was happening around the 2010s, where a lot of sci-fi stories resolved in a religious conclusion. So there might be some interesting story, and it's all sci-fi based, and it's all in that world. But then when you get to the conclusion, the end, there's not a science background, there's not a mystery question. It's a resolution in it's God, it's an angel, it's a devil, things like that. So I think sort of my desire to not adhere to extreme ideologies, coupled with that sort of, not disdain's a hard word, but dislike of the kinds of stories that sci-fi were happening. I think that's where the genesis of the story came from.
So does the story of Ascendance have absolutely no religion in it? Because again, on first blush, just the title of Ascendance and the synopsis of the book would tend to, for a lot of people, lead toward religion.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there's a little religion in it. Like one of the characters is a rabbi. One of the main characters is his daughter. But right off the bat, we start at a church that's shared by an imam, a priest, and a rabbi. Because in this world, like religious organizations have collapsed because a corporate entity, the Jacobs Institute, are the ones who are really holding the power. They have seemingly proven that there's an afterlife and that there's a way to actually experience this before you die. And they can give you what seems like verifiable proof. So once that proof is so believed, for lack of a better word, by everybody, well, what happens to religious organizations? They collapse because their sort of hold on people falters and fails away. So there is religion in it. Another character, sort of hides his faith. But this is really about corporate power and what society looks like when a corporate interests have such a strong hold on people's beliefs. And that's one of the reasons, like going back to your earlier question, like why now? Why now? I thought it was taking forever for this book to come out, for me to get it done. But now is the best time for this book to be here because we're living, like I said, like in a time of unprecedented change, especially around artificial intelligence, but technology in general. And we have no idea what the AI, let's start with AI, is going to look like a year from now, 5 years from now, or even every 3 months. It seems to change dramatically. And older stories in science fiction were not all about, but like throughout the last few decades, a lot of the stories were about technology is going to come and destroy humanity. It's going to be run amok, or it's not going to work well. Well, now it's not so much that technology is going to destroy us, and we're not worried about that. It's that the powerful people who have designed the technology, that the fear is that their plans are going to come to fruition. And so it's that those billionaires or trillionaire who have some diabolical plan is the anxiety here, and that it's going to come to fruition because we recognize, society recognizes that technology has such a strong pull on what we see, on what we believe, on who we choose to trust. And so we're so suspicious, again, not of the actual technological innovation, but of the people behind it. So this story is it feels so present now in a way that it probably didn't seem so present, when I first started 2 decades ago.
I often ask novelists if they would like their book to be turned into a film. But since you are a filmmaker, I will ask that in a different scenario. And that is, with the book Ascendance, would you be able to turn it over to a studio and another director and perhaps another producer if it were to get made?
Yeah, that's always the catch-22. Like, I'd love to be part of the process, but no one in Hollywood's gonna, they want full control. The answer is yes. At the stage I am in my life and my career, I would absolutely do that. I think one of the things that was interesting it was originally a screenplay, and then in the process of making those short films, I uncovered a lot about the world, and it helped really inform the story in the book in a way that wasn't there in the screenplay. What I realized is that in my perfect world here, this would actually be a TV show. There's so much in this world and so much in the story beyond, like, this is the first book in a series. I intend to keep writing in this series. There's a lot more story to tell. And I think the story in general was made to be a show because the characters are rich, the world is interesting, and there's a lot of story there. When I was writing the book, I envisioned essentially a 3 to 5 year show. And I actually have a show Bible in my head. I have the idea for a 3-book series at the very least in this. So there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Because I didn't want to just write a book. I didn't want to just write the one book. And as I was writing it, there was so much more story to tell. I wanted to make sure that I knew where the story as a whole was going while working on this first book. So I think I'd love to get it in front of a streamer because so Apple TV, HBO, I'm here for you.
I've mentioned that you have the podcast, you host a podcast called No Win Scenario. Give us the 30-second elevator pitch of what that podcast is all about.
Yeah, so I co-host No Win Scenario. It is a podcast by two friends who hate each other. So my co-host Trevor and I, we bicker and we talk about science fiction and entertainment. But really the reason people should come is because we have some great guests. We bring on authors, we bring on production designers, cinematographers, art directors, actors and actresses, artists, all who work in the sci-fi genre. So we've had everyone who, people who've worked on Star Trek and The Expanse, actors in Supernatural, editors for like Paradise. And they talk to us for a lengthy amount of time. So you get a good hour with most of our guests hearing about the work that they do in sci-fi entertainment. So it's a little bit of friends bickering beforehand and talking about what they like, because my friend and I, we have very different opinions about what appeals to us. But we really do good in-depth interviews with our guests who, I think a lot of people find it interesting to hear how science fiction in particular gets made, as well as we also touch upon sort of the mental health issues being a craftsperson in an industry that's often not forgiving. It's, where you might be employed for long periods of time doing a high profile show and then get laid off. And how do you deal with that? Or how do you deal with the 18-hour days? And how does your family deal with that? So it's a lot in the show, and it's a good time. It's real fun. The show, there are video episodes released. We shoot it in my studio here in Boston. So there's high production value for a lot of it. And it's a good time.
Excellent. So the podcast is called No Win Scenario. The book is called Ascendance. Don, thank you very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great talking to you.
Don Schechter, author of Ascendance and the co-host of the podcast No Win Scenario. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0885, and you'll find the links to Don's site, plus links to his podcast, and to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order his book directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
And now, Dad Joke Theater.
My doctor prescribed me a new cream that's supposed to stop me from gloating so much. I can't wait to rub it in.
Join us again for another Stuff File program, Dad Joke Theater.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like. But the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/thestuffileprogram.
Does it feel to you like AI is taking over? That the bots are winning? That AI actually stands for alarmingly invasive? If you crave more human connection, reach out to friends, play with your children, call your mom, and do what you're doing right now. Listen to the radio. Radio is thankfully, imperfectly human. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Available on Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and just about every other way you stream audio. This is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. It's radio that's everywhere you want to be. In some places you don't.
And still to come on the program, you'll meet Bobby Borgia, who is a magician and illusionist. Plus, Stuart Nulman is along with another edition of Book Banter. We also have a Sir Dudley's Poetry Corner, a morning shower thought, and of course an idiot of the day. But right now we have much more in Stuff File News right here, right now. It all started with a 911 call. 18-month-old Vincent Fiordolino was found unresponsive in his family's swimming pool. He was rushed to Mercy Gilbert, Arizona Medical Center, where a team tried to save him. At 6:20 p.m., Dr. Aryan Tuzi declared the child dead, but a police officer questioned him after hearing a nurse say that she found a pulse. To the officer's surprise, he said, "Tuzi then arrogantly told me he was the doctor. He has the medical degree. He went to medical school for a reason and to let him do his thing. The boy was taken to the hospital morgue. When the medical examiner's team arrived to pick up the body more than 5 hours later, the child was still breathing. He's at home now. He's alive and healthy. The hospital conducted an internal investigation into what it called a heartbreaking situation. The results of that investigation haven't been released. Oh, I'm sure there's a phalanx of lawyers on both sides who are about to do their thing. I'm also thinking that the hospital can sing to what is probably the outgoing doctor, toot toot toozy goodbye. An Iowa woman whose driver's license is suspended due to a conviction for driving her SUV while under the influence of meth has again been busted for operating a moving vehicle while impaired. She was arrested on July 24th after a witness reported her riding a Husqvarna lawnmower while appearing intoxicated in a Casey's convenience store parking lot in Tiffin. 36-year-old Michelle Hudson was stopped about a mile from her home. Officers noted slurred speech, poor balance, and bloodshot eyes during field sobriety tests. Her breath test registered under the legal limit, but police believe that she was impaired by drugs. Hudson refused to provide a urine sample. She was charged with operating under the influence and driving while barred, both aggravated misdemeanors. Her prior record includes theft, meth possession, assault, and other offenses. Which leads me to ask the question, where did she get the riding lawnmower from? Also, wouldn't it be fun if cops tested her by mowing a lawn in a straight line? Yeah. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, a Memphis FedEx store turned chaotic when a large iguana burst free and sent employees running for cover. Roderick Duncan arrived to collect his new pet, and staff asked to peek inside the live animal labeled box. When Duncan opened it and began removing the lizard from its bag, the iguana bolted behind the counter. Said Duncan, "He was bigger, way bigger than I expected, so it was a shock to me when he took off running." Duncan had expected the iguana, named Titan, to stay calm, since iguanas typically play dead when handled. But Titan, as Duncan said, came out ready for all the smoke. Now, I've seen a video of this, and when Titan made a break for it, the FedEx employees ran screaming, and Duncan was heard laughing.
Get up there, Daddy! Go get the iguana, baby!
A staff member improvised a barricade using boxes, allowing Duncan to corner and retrieve him. Said Duncan, "Big shout out to the workers at FedEx because they were all good sports." Well, unlike the movie Dirty Dancing, FedEx put Titan in the corner. You know, you never see this in a FedEx commercial.
It doesn't have to be this hard. FedEx takes the hassle out of shipping.
Go get the iguana, baby!
Relax. It's FedEx.
And now, this.
The Stuff File presents Sir Dudley Piddly Havisham Sedgwick Smythe's Poetry Corner.
There once was a girl named Stephanie who had a most sudden epiphany. She stubbed her big toe, which caused quite a woe, and she shouted in absolute agony.
And let's get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff All program, shall we? Bobby Borgia has been thrilling audiences as a magician and illusionist for 30 years, with live performances and appearances in more than 70 countries. He has appeared on numerous television shows and has served as a magic consultant for hit movies. He's also just recently won an Emmy. Bobby joins us from Erie, Pennsylvania via Riverside.com. Hi, Bobby.
Hi, Peter. It's good to hear your voice.
Good to hear yours as well. I'm going to get to the Emmy in just a matter of moments, but I want to go back a little bit and just talk about the fact that you've done so much in your career. When you first started getting into magic, did you ever envision the career that you would have had?
Not at that time, no. I didn't see past, magicians just do your magic show on stage. That's it. And did I know that there were going to be these broad branches of this amazing tree that took me from illustrating Idiot's Guide to Magic Tricks to designing illusions for Pink's concert to consulting for TV shows and movies and doing, magic specials on network? I never saw that. And by synchronicity, it really took me to some places that I still surprise me today. And it's still happening today. I just stand in gratitude. That's the only way I can describe it. I'm standing in gratitude.
Let's go back to the beginning. How did you get into magic? And I know a little bit about this because I've done a little bit of research on you. First of all, we as children both loved Captain Kangaroo. I just want to put that out there right now.
Yeah. Bob Keeshan, great haircut, huh? Well, this is the truth. So when I just did a TED Talk a few years ago, and I opened my TED Talk with how I did get into magic. It's kind of an interesting story. So my younger brother, I was 4 years old, and I had a younger brother named Anthony Scott Borgia, who was 3. He had to undergo a liver transplant. Now, this was the first successful liver transplant, in the United States for kids. And it was on the Walter Cronkite Evening News. They did a whole story and a big fundraiser for it. Did have the liver transplant, but unfortunately, 3 months after, complications and an embolism actually took his life, and he died at 3, and I'm 4. And I have no idea where my brother just disappeared to. I don't understand. My parents are telling me he's with God now. He's in heaven. I don't know what that is. I'm 4. So to fill that void, magic became my getaway, my escape. And that's when I saw Doug Henning on Captain Kangaroo. And because of the unfortunate event, it just opened this door of imagination. To fill that void was seeing Doug Henning, and who was a Toronto boy, or no, Winnipeg, I think, originally Canadian magician. And he is the one that got me into magic.
I'm just wondering, in 4-year-old Bobby's mind, since you didn't know where your brother disappeared to.
Yes.
Did you feel that with magic, you could make him reappear?
Something like that. It was looking for an answer, looking for an answer of where my brother went and how do I see him again and what that is. Magic was the escape, the catalyst. And in magic, anything is possible, right? So that definitely was one of the answers bopping around in my head.
And let's flash forward. As I mentioned, you recently won an Emmy. What did you win an Emmy for?
I wrote and produced a documentary for PBS. They wanted to do a documentary on a magician named Harry Keller. And Harry Keller was born in 1849. In the magic world, Peter, he's known as the Dean of American Magicians. And there's a lot more to him than that, because he got lost in history, but he was the first magician to become an international star. This man is the reason why magic is where it is today, if you ask me. He even mentored Houdini's career. He was the inspiration that L. Frank Baum based The Wizard on. He was the inspiration for The Wizard of Oz. And he was born in my hometown of Erie, PA. And I happen to own a magic and comedy club, restaurant, and bar in Erie called Keller's. So they approached me, a man named Tom Fox. He's a director from England, flew into Erie, met with me. And he said, look, PBS, we want to do this thing on Keller. We don't know anything about it. And I'm like, great. And so for about 8 months, we flew around the country. I got everybody in my wheelhouse in the magic world, like the best authors, the best historians. And we pulled this thing together. And Tom Fox ended up leaving halfway through the shoot. And Jesse James and Mike Berlin they jumped on and took over the directing part, the editing part. And it came out amazing. And little do I know, I get a call that they're like, hey, I was in the studios in Florida rehearsing for a show called Flick that I produced. And my phone kept ringing with this weird number. And I'm like, it looks like spam. Well, the number just kept popping up. I'm like, hello? And the voice goes, are you Robert Gary Borgia Jr.? And I'm like, yeah. He figured like I owe money to somebody here. I don't know. And he goes, this is the Emmy Award Council, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, yeah. And they're like, congratulations on your telly. You're now up for an Emmy. I didn't even know I won a telly, and I didn't even know what a telly was. And I was like, oh my God. And I got to, rent the tux and take my fiance, and we flew in to Cleveland, Ohio, where they had the award ceremony. And this was just 3 weeks ago. And it was mind blowing. And I won. I couldn't believe I won. And I got to go on stage and I got my Emmy. And it was such a memorable night that all this work I did on just telling Harry Keller's story got, recognized by the Television Academy. That blew my mind. I'm very, very, very grateful right now.
I also mentioned that you have been a magic consultant for hit movies. How does one become a magic consultant? And what are some of the films that you worked on?
Most of them started out in television. So I lived in Hollywood, California from 1990 to about 2014. So in 1991 or two, they were doing an ABC TV series called Lois and Clark, The Adventures of Superman. And it was a pretty popular series in America. Dean Cain played Superman and Terry Hatcher played Lois. And there was a magic episode, and Penn Jillette was playing the evil magician. Well, they needed to hire a magic consultant to come in and create the magic that was going to happen, get the props ready, all that stuff. And Ray Pierce was the one that got hired, but he grabbed me and he goes, "You're coming with me." And I got to be the consultant on this show. And then they're like, hey, the director's like, let's put Bobby in front of the camera. And Peter, I am like, holy cow, I'm 19 years old. I'm going to be on TV. And the director goes, let's make him a mime. I just went, oh God. But that was my first show that I did was Lois and Clark, The Adventures of Superman, a couple B movies. And then I did The Pretender on NBC, which was a pretty big television series. And then I did the Disney movie, Now You See It. And that's where I flew down to New Orleans for 3 months and created all the magic and taught the cast and everything like that.
When you've already mentioned Harry Keller and Doug Henning, when you finally got into magic, when you decided that was going to be your career, who were your mentors and who were your idols besides the two men I've just mentioned?
Oddly enough, it was not a magician. It was a recording artist named Prince. Don't know if you heard of the man, but Prince, to me, was the epitome of creation and spirituality. And there was something about this man that just drew every cell of my body just was drawn to this man as an artist. And it inspired me so much because his level of creation this guy was just he was in touch with a whole higher power in a different way, and that fascinated me. Everything he did, from what he wore to the way he sang, all the instruments, that fascinated me. And I went, if I could apply that to my craft, that's what the inspiration was from Prince was. How could I be the best I could be? I want to know everything about magic. So, it took me in different directions because of that. I was a graphic artist, and the author, Tom Ogden, the author of Idiot's Guide to Magic Tricks, hired me as the illustrator for the book. A lot of concerts like Christina Aguilera, Beyonce, Henry Rollins. I did his music video on MTV. I designed all these illusions for live concert events. And I learned a lot of that from a magician named Franz Ferrari. So Franz would design a lot of stuff for Michael Jackson, and he would hire me as the artist. So I would just create the drawings of what the illusion would be. We'd go in, sell it, and then go into rehearsals. And I got to learn with Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson and all these concerts he was doing. And then I went off on my own and did that. And that was a whole different world for me. It was amazing.
So I guess for you, it's very important to do the magic trick, but to put a entire show around your magic.
Boys had a bullseye. Yeah. To me, presentation separates you from anyone else in the world because you could be doing the same magic trick that another magician does, but the presentation of your whole entire, from the music to the lighting to all of that. So basically, Carnival Cruise Line Corporation which Carnival owns Princess and Holland America and Seaboard. They were building one of the largest ships in 2016. I designed a show called Flick, the Power of Motion Pictures. I didn't direct it. Paul Roberts directed it, but they hired me to come in and create all this live magic that would be in the show and duplicate the special effects or the world that you saw in this movie. And that was my first hands-on, like, holy cow. And from there, then they're like, we want to buy a show from you for this new ship we're building. And I wrote a show called M Theory. And it was very high-tech, using LED screens and top computer animators, team of people that I can't wrap my head around how I ended up working with them all. And it went off so well, they're like, can you write 3 more? And I went, sure. And I didn't know better. But here I am producing these 4 shows all at the same time. And, you know, we're using 16 LED screens that were robotic, that were 3 stories high. Where do you have the audience look? You know, there's so much learning involved. And so much of me being a sponge and learning from this amazing team that Carnival gave me. And you took magic to a whole level that's never been seen before. And that was a great learning experience. And they're still all running today. So every month I have rehearsals for the new cast of Flick or the new cast of the Voodoo Moon show or the Vegas show or the circus show. It's pretty cool.
Well, congratulations on your amazing career. It sounds like it just seems to have no end or any stop to it. Your website is bobbyborgia.com. I would assume that people can go there and find out where you're appearing next or what projects you're working on.
Yes, that and also kellersmagic.com. That's KELLARS magic.com. And that's the club. And we have Piff the Magic Dragon headlining tonight. We bring in the top magicians and the top comedians in the country. And it's a really cool place, not far from Toronto.
Well, Bobby, thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
Peter, I can't say I am so grateful, sir, and thank you so much for having me on.
Magic and illusionist Bobby Borgia. You can go to our website at thestufffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0885, and you'll find the link to Bobby's site, plus the link to Keller's, the magic and comedy club that he owns. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Giving you something to think about. This is Morning Shower Thoughts.
Do racehorses slow down when they see police horses?
Morning Shower Thoughts from the Stuff File program.
Got something for the mailbag? Drop Peter a line. He'd love to hear from you. Send your email to mailbag@thestufffile.com. And remember, stuff is spelled STUPH. That's mailbag@thestufffile.com. Or catch up with him on Twitter or Facebook. There's more Stuff File coming your way in just a few moments.
The Stuff File program is everywhere on several stations and on several platforms, including YouTube.
The YouTube handle is youtube.com/@PeterAnthonyHolder-StuffFile.
That's kind of long-winded, isn't it? Just go to YouTube and type out my name, Peter Anthony Holder.
On YouTube, you'll find interviews, short vertical videos, and more. There's a lot to check out.
Again, that's youtube.com/@PeterAnthonyHolder-StuffFile.
Oh, for the love of God, just go to YouTube and type in my name.
That's it for another shift. She's leaving work. Someone says, "We're going for some food. Want to come?" No thanks, she says. There's somewhere I need to go. Then she also goes for some food. At a food bank. 1 in 5 Canadian food bank visitors is working. Yet a job is still not enough. Visit the food bank near you to help and be helped.
Latitude 47 degrees 14 minutes north. Longitude 84 degrees 39 minutes west. Location Montreal, Canada. This is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. It's time to crack a spine. The Stuff File presents Book Banter with Stuart Nulman. Once again, here's Peter Anthony Holder.
And once again, Stuart is with us, and I believe that we have nothing to do, at least with this particular book, dealing with real estate. Is that correct?
That's right. Or anything that's very patriotic, too. Because on this edition of Book Banter, we're going to look at David Sedaris. He's one of the most respected humorists today. His live on stage readings play to sold out crowds wherever he goes across North America and even around the world. And his books have always landed on bestseller lists everywhere. His latest collection, called The Land and Its People, is no exception. Now, throughout its 260 pages, the reader is served another slice of the sharp, sarcastic humor and power of observation that has made David Sedaris a humorist par excellence in the same league as Fran Lebowitz and Adam Gopnik. This collection is a mix, sort of like to the heart kind of autobiography and comic misadventures of all stripes. It includes, and you won't believe this, but these are things that actually happened with David. On a visit to Rome, he had an audience with the late Pope Francis. He decided to go to the Vatican's official cloutier and buy a custom-made priest's cassock. And he was accompanied and aided by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. She was with him on that same audience with the late Pope Francis. And he still has that cassock. Oh, can you say illegal to, imitate a priest? Then there was the road trip that he had with his partner Hugh from Maine to New York City, in which they picked up a tech-savvy young woman who, during their trip to New York, introduced them for the first time to McDonald's Chicken McNuggets. Yeah, that's true. But I found one of the most profound essays in the book is how he looked through his address book to weed out contacts and friends who he had listed who passed away, but just couldn't do the task, and gives little, capsule profiles of these people who he knew and what happened to them. It's a real tug at your heart kind of essay. And then he offers arguments about why he would never be the subject of a written biography. One thing I liked about this is that he uses his great research skills to give examples of what he learned from reading other people's biographies, which convinced him that he should not be the subject of someone else writing his life story. I want to cite this example. And he says, the best biographies include startling details. The fact, for instance, that Buster Keaton's father tried to remove his own prostate with a kitchen knife. He was suffering from dementia, but how much of an excuse was that really? I was equally surprised to learn that, on the advice of a healer, Jackson Pollock regularly swallowed a combination of bat poop and ground beets. This, he was told, would establish a quote-unquote proper balance of gold and silver in his urine that would allow him to continue drinking all the alcohol he wanted.
Well, it's one thing for someone to say that they won't be writing their autobiography, but is there any way that he can stop someone, especially posthumously, of writing his biography?
Well, unless he puts a provision in his will that tells, his partner Hugh and his sister Amy, who's an actor, comedian in her own right, or his sister Gretchen, to say, in the event that someone tries to write my biography, please, or maybe, and his lawyer too, make a provision that it should not happen.
Well, it might not happen, or he might not want it to happen, but he's a public figure. What's to prevent it legally?
Maybe he'll be consulting a lawyer when he makes out his last will and testament. If there are provisions that it could happen. I mean, look what happened with Clifford Irving and Howard Hughes over 50 years ago.
Well, look what happened to Frank Sinatra and Here, Kitty, Kitty, Kitty.
There was even a little controversy in the mid-'70s. Arthur Marx, Groucho's son, who was a biographer in his own right, wanted to write a biography of Carroll O'Connor. O'Connor basically fought him tooth and nail to prevent him from doing it, and the biography never came to be.
Yeah, but it's a little easier this day and age to get the research to put in a biography or put out a biography. And I don't know if those situations that took place in the 60s, 70s, and 80s would actually fly right now. I mean, if somebody wanted to do a biography, they could pretty much do it once they found a publisher.
But at the end of this essay, Sedaris mentions that even though he is hesitant to be the subject of a written biography, he was happy that he was mentioned and interviewed for a biography of the late author David Foster Wallace. And he even said where you could find the, where he has his little spot in the biography of Wallace.
Anyway, this week's book is?
Well, I want to tell you about this. Why, by reading The Land and the People, you will discover why he has earned awards for his work. Basically, David Sedaris is the definite humorous and curmudgeonly voice of the past 25 years. So that's The Land and Its People by David Sedaris, published by Little Brown, and it's $40.
I love all of his appearances on late night talk shows, starting off the bat with whatever wardrobe he's wearing that he comes out on, or comes out in rather, on those particular shows. It's just breathtaking.
Well, I'd like to see the moment if he decides to wear that priest cassock he had made when he was in Italy. I wonder if that'll ever happen.
Anyway, what other books in this genre do you suggest?
Well, let's stick with David Sedaris. I recommend the first Sedaris book I ever read was called Me Talk Pretty One Day. I thought the title sounded very funny, and I read it, and I enjoyed the book. But if you want a definitive collection of Sedaris's best stories and essays, you should read The Best of Me. It was an anthology that he put together back in 2020, so it would serve as a good introduction. If you enjoyed what you read in The Best of Me, then read his other works.
Excellent. And again, this week's book is?
The Land and Its People by David Sedaris, published by Little Brown, and it's $40.
And how can one find the Stuart Nulman?
Well, you won't find me cassock shopping in Italy. You'll find me in the pages of the Montreal Times, not the L'Observatore Romano, at ntltimes.ca, or my blog, stuartnulmansgrapevine.wordpress.com.
Thank you very much, Stu.
You're welcome, Peter, and back to The Land and Its People.
Stuart Nulman with another edition of Book Banter here on the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
The Stuff File.
And we're just about a racetrack for this edition of the Stuff File program. We do have an Idiot of the Day coming your way in just a matter of moments, but I've got one more Stuff File news story to share with you right here, right now. An officer from the RCMP in Mission, BC, noticed a white Tesla stopped partly blocking the lane just before a freeway on-ramp and checked it out. The driver was still behind the wheel, but was slow to respond to the officer, who called for backup. The man also had watery eyes and the odor of alcoholic beverages on his breath. The officer told the man that he was being detained for a breath sample, but the driver simply locked his doors, rolled up his window, and refused to get out. After an extended wait, during which time more officers arrived, the cop informed the man he was under arrest for obstructing a peace officer, but he still refused to exit the vehicle. Said the RCMP in a statement, police tactically dismantled and removed the driver's window, unlocked the doors, and removed the driver from the vehicle despite his efforts to bring the steering wheel with him. I guess tactically dismantled and removed the driver's window. That's a fancy way of saying they broke it. Yeah. The unnamed 51-year-old failed roadside sobriety tests, to no one's surprise. He was issued a 90-day driving prohibition. His Tesla was impounded for 30 days, and as the RCMP said in a statement, he will also need to order a new window for his Tesla. Well, while he's getting the window fixed on his Tesla, perhaps he should also put in a breath alcohol ignition interlock device that he has to blow into to start his car. And boys and girls, it's that moment you've all been waiting for. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. This Stuff Out presents the Idiot of the Day.
A business in American Canyon, California called police. They lost more than $100,000 in property to burglars who ripped off tools, vehicles, and large spools of copper wire. Security cameras got photos of the suspects' vehicles, which police sent to neighboring city police departments, leading to results. The Alameda County Sheriff's Office found one of the vehicles and detained the driver. American Canyon officers responded and made the arrest, allegedly finding selfies on 53-year-old Daniel Lamas's phone at the scene of the crime, documenting the theft. Police in Hayward found the other vehicle the next day, and that driver, 49-year-old Dennis Tillage, who was also arrested and tied in with Lamas. Both are charged with conspiracy and other felonies. At least some of the property has been recovered. Good detective work is usually incremental. This seems to be a broken record of late, but why? Oh, why? Would you take selfies of your crime, which, if arrested, cops can see on your phone? One reason, and one reason only. You're an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0885. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestufffile.com. And once again, Stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number. And once again, that's 0885. Email me at peter@thestufffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Spoutable, Mastodon, and Blue Sky as PA Holder. Check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including over the air on stations like
World FM New Zealand,
WNRHLP FM Newport Richey, Florida,
KZZHLP FM Eureka, California,
WFNULP St. Paul, Minnesota,
CKUW FM Winnipeg, Manitoba,
CFMU Hamilton, Ontario,
CKLU Sudbury, Ontario,
Local 107.3 FM St. John, New Brunswick,
CHSR Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Plus, streaming on any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. Well, you weren't literally with him. Well, maybe you were, but I don't see how. I mean, he does record these in advance, you know, and... Okay, maybe you did listen with him. Who am I to call you a liar? And personally, I've never met the guy, and I'm not in a hurry to either.